بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Ahead of us is a mighty topic which is going to be discussed in details, and that's the ghusl. We discussed, if you remember, the ghusl, what is the one or the actions that would require a ghusl. We discussed that. And now we're coming to the pillars of the ghusl and then the description of the ghusl and how to perform it. First of all, he says arkan. Arkan means pillars, and they are from the obligatory acts that if the person does not do the arkan, the pillars, then his ghusl will not be accepted. First one, an-niyyah, the intention. The intention is obligatory. It's a pillar in all types of ibadah. So whether it is ghusl or wudu or tayammum, you have to have the intention. The intention is not something that you say. Also the second pillar, and that is the person has to make sure that the body had the water, so that is including the inside of the mouth and including the navel and including the underarms and including between the legs. So the water has to go all over the body. If you do these two things, your ghusl is accepted. Now we could add as well third pillar, and that is the water has to reach the skin if the person is hairy, or for example, if the woman she's doing her ghusl, the water has to reach the skin. So if you are a hairy person, you have to rub. And we could add as well, and that is a tasmiyah, and that is which is saying Bismillah. And the tasmiyah and Bismillah, welcome back. How's Morocco? You smell Moroccan now. Saying Bismillah, and that is a Bismillah, is to be on obligatory, and we said, just like we said in the wudu, if the person forgot Bismillah, then no problem. If he deliberately didn't say Bismillah, then his act will be jeopardized. But as for the intention, or for the water not to touch all the body, even if you forgot, your act will be unacceptable. So if the person had jumped into the swimming pool for the sake of swimming, if the person had a shower for the sake of removing the sweat and removing the bad smell, yet he did not remember to make his intention for the sake of removing the sexual defilement, for example, janaba, or the woman removing her after her, for example, menses, if she did not recall that, then her ghusl will not be valid for her ibadah. Now we're coming to the acts of the ghusl which are recommended. How the Prophet would perform the ghusl. Fadl.
The third way to perform the ghusl. Aisha said, when the Prophet ﷺ would perform ghusl because of sexual defilement, he used to begin by washing his hands. Then he would pour water from his right hand to his left and wash his private part. He would then perform the ablution of the prayer. Then he would take some water and put his fingers down to the roots of his hair. When he saw that he fulfilled that part, he would pour 3 handfuls of water over his head using both hands. Finally, he would pour over all of his body and then wash his feet. Note.
Right. Washing the feet, by the way, that depends on to the way that you are washing yourself. Meaning that you could wash the feet with the wudu at the beginning, and you could delay that, as we're going to see inshallah in a minute. Note, please go ahead.
No, it is not required for a woman to unbraid her hair.
You have to speak at the microphone. You have to learn that. Look like me like this. Always tap the microphone. Yeah.
It is not required for a woman to unbraid her hair when she makes ghusl due to sexual defilement. However, she must do so when making ghusl after her menses. Salama radiallahu anha said, O Messenger of Allah, I am a woman with tightly braided hair on my head. Do I need to undo them for making the ghusl due to sexual defilement? He replied, no. It will be sufficient for you to pour 3 handfuls of water over your head and then pour water over yourself, and you will be purified. Aisha narrated that Asma asked the Prophet ﷺ about the ghusl after the menses. He replied, she should take her water mixed with tree leaves and purify herself.
Can I just ask you to put this because he's low?
Yeah.
I know.
You want to stop with
Just want the macro, just macro, I give you a macro. You don't know how to use it. You could see that. Go on. Nah. Because he says like this, you see. He doesn't speak like that.
Yeah, you got to speak into
You speak like this.
It's fine, yeah. It's fine, that's not fine.
He replied, she should take her water mixed with low tree leaves and purify herself well with it, and then pour water over her head and rub it in well until it reaches the root of her hair. Then she should pour water over herself. Then she should take a piece of cotton with musk on it and purify herself with it. Asma asked, how shall she purify herself with it? He said, exalted by Allah, she should purify herself with it. Aisha then kind of whispered to her, she should apply it to the traces of blood. Asma then asked him about ghusl due to sexual defilement. He replied, she should take water and purify herself well with it, or complete the purification and then pour water over her head and rub it in till it reaches the roots of her hair, and then pour water over herself.
And Aisha also, she said after that, good women, the women of the Ansar, for verily their shyness did not prevent them to seek knowledge in their religion, to understand their religion. Because that woman, she came to ask the Prophet ﷺ, how could she wash herself when she is in her menses. So that Aisha, she said, what good women they are, the Ansar. Their shyness, they're shy, but they will not prevent this shyness the person from understanding his deen and understanding why he should understand how to learn the etiquette and the manners of the toilet, the manners of the ghusl, the manners of all of that. So there's no shyness about this. I want to learn, I want to see, I want to learn how to wash myself properly. Right, so just before we're going to give you all of that, let me just finish what he's going to read, and that is this hadith, which is, go on.
This hadith is explicit in demonstrating that the ghusl of the woman after menses differs from that due to sexual defilement. In one case, the Prophet ﷺ emphasized that the woman must rub vigorously and purify herself in a way that was not emphasized while describing the ghusl due to sexual defilement. Similarly, the hadith of Salama is evidence that it is not obligatory to unbraid one's hair for the ghusl due to sexual defilement. The basic ruling would be for her to undo her braids in order to ensure that the water reaches what is below them. However, she is excused from doing so due to the number of times she would have to do that, and the hardship that she would encounter, as opposed to the case of the ghusl after the menses, which occurs only once in a month.
Right, now we come to the demonstration of the ghusl and what are the points regarding the ghusl. So please, if you have writing, to write down what we're going to be doing for the ghusl. Okay, number one is the intention, and that is a pillar or condition. And number two is saying Bismillah, which is obligatory. So what I say, I'm going to add to it, whether it's obligatory, recommended, or whatever. So that is going to be making it easy for you as well to understand. So number one, the intention, which is a pillar or a condition, because both is the same in terms of implementation. But the difference between the condition and the pillar is that the condition is from outside the act, whereas the pillar from the inside of the act. Example, from the wudu, for example, washing the hand, washing the face is a pillar because it's part of the act. Whereas the water to reach the body is a condition because it's not part of the act. Part of the act as well to wash your feet in the wudu is a pillar. And for the water to be pure is not part of the act, that's a condition. But both, if they're not there, your act of ibadah, whether it's wudu or ghusl, will not be accepted. So the second one is, they said, the tasmiyah, which is saying Bismillah. Bismillah is an obligatory. It's not a condition, nor it's a pillar. It's less than that, but it still is obligatory. So the person needs to know that he has to make sure that he is saying Bismillah. If he doesn't say Bismillah deliberately, then he will lose his ghusl. Third thing, to wash your hand before you dip it into the bucket. And washing the hands here is recommended. It becomes compulsory if you have woken up from a night sleep. That's if you are using a bucket. And after that, you wash your private part with the left, and you use the water to pour on it with the right. The private parts here, I mean the front and the back. And that is recommended. Again, the fourth act is to wash the private part, front and the back, with the left. And it's recommended. You pour the water with the right, and you wash with the left. Number 5. After that, you wash your hands with soap, or you could rub it against the sand or against the wall. That is to clean it from the private part, because you wash your private parts, and that is recommended. Then the 6th act, you make wudu. And if you are in a tub where there is no drainage, you leave the feet until the end. But if you are in a tub where there is a drainage, you could wash the feet, including with wudu. And that is recommended. The whole wudu is recommended. Number 8, to put water on all the body. And that is according to the need. So there's no such thing 3 times. According to the need. Sorry. Before that, I've just missed something. I have to say it first. That is 2. That is we said number 6. Yeah, number 7. To make sure that you will as well put your fingers into the hair, and you put 3 times on the head, starting with the right, then the left. And that is recommended. Starting with the right, then the left. Number 8, to put the water on all of the body. And that is a pillar. The one before, about the head, is recommended. But now to put the water all over the body, that's the pillar. And you start with the right side of your body, then the left. And that is in itself recommended. To start with the right and the left is recommended. You have to rub if you've got hair, a lot of hair, and that's compulsory. And also in that, you should make sure that you're going to reach the areas where they are difficult to reach, like inside the navel, under the arms, the gargling of the water. As for the women, she must undo her plaited hair if that ghusl is for the menses or post-childbirth, postnatal blood. So if she's finished her postnatal blood, or she had finished her menses before she commences her ibadah, and even before she makes intercourse with her husband, she has to have her plaited hair undone in the ghusl. So the ghusl is required upon her, even if she wants to make the intercourse and approach the husband, and also to do her ibadah, she must make the ghusl, including undoing the plaited hair. As for her ghusl for janaba, she doesn't have to do her plaited hair unless a concession from the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the sake of that, she might be having janaba a lot, and that is why it's not going to be easy for her to undo her plaited hair. So it is compulsory upon the menstruating women or the postnatal blood, or the woman who's experiencing postnatal blood, that is to undo her plaited hair. It's a wajib, compulsory. Also, from the thing that you need to know is that you should not urinate into your tub unless it's got a drainage. If it's got a drainage, yes. But if it hasn't, then it should not, because it is light. Also, it is a must, which is a compulsory act, that is, to economize the usage of the water. Economize the usage of the water. And let me tell you that the Prophet ﷺ, he used to have a wash with 4 liters. 4 liters. You know, so that two bottles of Coke, each one is 2 liters. That one is how much? 750?
1 litre, I think.
Huh? Or is it 750? Is it? Or 500?
Litre.
It's a liter. So 4 of that. I'm sure for some of you, 4 of that is enough for 3 feet only. 4 of that. The shower that you put, I'm sure that is going to be more than 50 liters. Allah al-Musta'an. Get yourself used to economize the usage of water. And that's a must, as I said. The woman who is in her menses, it is recommended for her to use a cotton or a piece of cloth smeared with musk to trace the blood where it comes from. She is not required to wash the inside of her private part. She is not required to wash the inside of her private part. It's only to trace the blood with the smeared cotton or cloth in order to get rid of the smell. Do not show your awrah when you make the shower, the ghusl, to anybody except the husband and the wife. There is no awrah in between them. And the woman and the man can use one tub and use the same water that's been used. For the Prophet of Allah used to have the water is being used by Aisha. So when Aisha, she puts on her body, goes on a tub, Prophet of Allah, he would take like a container and takes from that water and use it on top of himself. So there's no problem to use the used water from the, unless of course it's coming down dirty, and you know, that is to do with disgust, but it's to do with that it's allowed to use the used water. Now there is no need for another wudu after the ghusl, because some people after the ghusl make wudu. Also, that is, some of the people, they might pass wind after the ghusl, or urinate. Passing wind or urinating after the ghusl, it doesn't require to make what? Another ghusl. It's just to do what? Wudu. That's it. So, if you are in the shower and you have passed wind or urinating, it does not do anything, because you are having still the ghusl. So it does not affect anything. But if you finished and you have done it, then you don't have to do the ghusl again, or rather you just do the wudu. Your ghusl is valid. It will remove the sexual defilement. Right, I think I have done what I need to do regarding the description of the ghusl. Now, can you just give me the benefit that the two wives, two husband and wife, the couple? Read the last thing. Yeah, the note.
Note, it is permissible for a husband and wife to perform the ghusl together in one place, wherein one can see the private parts of the other. Aisha radiallahu anha said, I would make ghusl with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from one bowl while we were both sexually defiled.
Right. Even I found that the Prophet ﷺ, he could wash himself with as little as 2.8 liters. I worked it out here because the sa'. Subhanallah. Less than 3 bottles of that. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right. As for the woman, she's not supposed to undo her hair, her braided hair when she's on her sexual defilement, not the menses. For verily, Abdullah ibn Amr, he used to make the fatwa, for verily, That is the woman, she has to undo her hair, even with sexual defilement, janaba. So when Aisha, she heard about this, she said, why is he involving himself in something he doesn't know? Then he asked the women to shave their head. Let him ask the women to what? Shave their head instead of doing. For verily, the Prophet ﷺ did not command us to do that. Right. Now, we're going to come to the following, which is the washes which are recommended. Al-Aghsal al-Mustahabba. Na'am.
Occasion in which it is recommended to make ghusl. Number 1, perform a ghusl for every separate act of sexual intercourse. Abu Rafi' narrated that the Prophet ﷺ would visit his different wives during one night and make ghusl for each one. Abu Rafi' said to him, O Messenger of Allah, can't you just make it one? He replied, this is purer, better and more purifying.
He said, Azka wa atyab wa athhar. Right, this ghusl, why are you saying it is recommended if it's after the intercourse? It means that after intercourse you have the ghusl. Because you could collect all of this, you could just, for example, at the end of the intercourses, then you could have a ghusl and it would be enough. But it is after every intercourse, you do a ghusl. So the Prophet of Allah, in one night, he went to all his wives. So every time he goes to one wife, he finishes, he goes to make a ghusl. Goes to the second one, makes a ghusl. He could have just not make a ghusl and waited until he finished all of them, and they made one ghusl for all of them. For verily, not just the ghusl is also enough, you could make wudu. And this wudu is, as I said, it's not for the sake of lifting the janaba away from you. No. It's for the Prophet ﷺ when he said, Azka wa atyab wa athhar. It gives you more power. Instead of using these medicines, the side effects. So it gives the person more power. For verily the Prophet of Allah said, إِذَا أَتَى أَحَدُكُمْ أَهْلَهُ ثُمَّ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَعُودَ فَلْيَتَوَضَّأ فَإِنَّهُ أَنْشَطُ لِلْعَهْدِ. If a person he had come to his wife and made the intercourse, then he wanted to go back again for another one, then let him make wudu, for verily it gives him power to go back. It gives him power. But now the ghusl is even more better. The ghusl, wash, is better. So that's the first wash. Second one.
Number 2, perform a ghusl for every prayer by the woman who is mustahada. Mustahaba. She can perform ghusl for every prayer, or for the noon and afternoon prayers together with one ghusl, and the sunset and night prayers with one ghusl, and the morning prayers with another ghusl. This is based on the report from Aisha radiallahu anha, who said, Habiba had continuous bleeding during the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he ordered her to make ghusl for every prayer. In another narration, she stated, a woman had continuous bleeding during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he ordered her to pray the afternoon prayer early while delaying the noon prayer, and to perform one ghusl for the both of them. You also ordered that she delay the sunset prayer and pray the night prayer earlier and make one ghusl for the both of them. You also ordered that she make one ghusl for the morning prayer.
The mustahada, we're going to be talking about her in details when we come to the hayd al-nifas and al-istihada. But here, let's just touch upon it, which is to do with the itisal. Al-mustahada, the one who is not menstruating, she is discharging blood, but during the days which are not her period. So it hasn't got the characteristics of the blood of the menses, where it is the smell and the color. It hasn't got that at the time. For verily this comes in abnormal circumstances, and it's called istihada. And verily the woman, she has to make her ibadah in terms of fasting and praying and all of that. And she's allowed to approach her husband in relationship, in marital relation. So it says here from the preferred ghusl for the person to do, the woman, in her istihada, to do it for every prayer. She doesn't have to do it for every prayer. This is preferred. She could do wudu, and she must do wudu for every prayer. Even if she did not pass wind, even if she did not urinate, even if she did not sleep, as soon as the dhuhr finishes and the asr starts, then she has to make another wudu, regardless if she had urinated or she did not. So basically the entrance of a new time prayer, it will invalidate her previous wudu. But she could combine the prayers in the following manner. Delaying the dhuhr to the end of the time,
That means praying the Dhuhr at its time, but at the end of it, and bringing Asr at the beginning of its time. That means praying Asr at its time, but at the beginning of it, and making one wudu for both, or making one ghusl, which is better, for both. So the best, let me finish as well. Maghrib and Isha. She delays the Maghrib to the end of its time, and that is praying the Maghrib at the end of its time, but it's the end of it. And forwarding Isha to the beginning of its time, that means praying the Isha at its time, but the beginning of it, and doing it for one wudu. But ghusl is better. And Fajr is all the time, is to be on its own. So let's say what is the best for the mustahada. The best for the mustahada, the best one is ghusl for each prayer. Okay? Please put them there now. Best for the mustahada, ghusl for each prayer. So every prayer she does, she needs ghusl to wash the blood and everything. Second in best is, that is, to make wudu for each prayer. Second in best. Third in best, to combine Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha and make ghusl for each of those, ghusl for the Fajr. So the third one in level, making combination Dhuhr and Asr together, Maghrib and Isha together, make ghusl for each, for both combinations, and always Fajr in its own have a ghusl. The last one is same thing but making what? Wudu. Which is combining Dhuhr and Asr, Maghrib, Isha and Fajr, but making wudu. So how many wudu we making in this case? 3 wudu. How many wudu ghusl we making in the case before that? 3 ghusls. How many wudu in the second case? We said 5 wudu. How many ghusl in the first case? 5 ghusl. Is that understood, everybody? Okay. Third.
Number 3, performing ghusl after being unconscious. Aisha radiallahu anha said, in his last days, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam became grievously ill. He asked whether the people had performed the prayers. He replied, no, Messenger of Allah. They are waiting for you. He said, put water in the tub for me. Aisha added, we did so. He said, he made ghusl and tried to stand up, but he fainted. When he recovered, he again asked whether the people had performed the prayer. We said, no, they are waiting for you. Messenger of Allah, he again said, put water in the tub for me. He sat down, made ghusl and tried to stand up, but he fainted again. Then he recovered and asked, have the people performed their prayer? We replied, no, they are waiting for you, Messenger of Allah. He said, put water in the tub for me. He sat down, made ghusl and tried to stand up, but he fainted. Then he recovered and asked, have the people performed the prayer? We replied, no, they are waiting for you, Messenger of Allah. In the remainder of the hadith, he sends for Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu to lead the prayer.
Right. In this hadith, Prophet of Allah, before he died, during his last illness, how many times did he mention that he had fell unconscious in this hadith? 4. 4 times, and he was also suffering from the fever and the illness. Yet, every time he falls unconscious, he used to what? Have a ghusl. To show the emphasis of what? Of the wash. Highly recommended. So in this hadith, please write down that the Prophet ﷺ, he had mentioned, the hadith mentioned 4 times he fell unconscious. And he had 4 washes to emphasize the recommendation of making the ghusl. Yet the Prophet was so tired, so ill. It's not easy to make a ghusl, but he made the ghusl. And it helps you through your fever. Number 4.
Number 4, performing ghusl after burying their corypheus. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anh narrated that he came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and said, Abu Talib has passed away. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him, go and bury him. Ali then said that he did so, and when he came back to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him to perform ghusl.
So this is recommended, not compulsory. Ali ibn Abi Talib says he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said Abu Talib had died. Who's Abu Talib?
Uncle.
Abu Talib, whose uncle?
to Ali.
Yeah.
He's dead. In another narration he said, your uncle, the kafir, died, Messenger of Allah. What does it tell you? That Ali ibn Abi Talib, after he had seen his father dying upon kufr, his relationship had ceased to exist. Khalas. And that is what it is. Because if the person passes by the grave of a disbeliever, what does he say? Greeting of the hellfire. Whether it's your father or your what? Mother. Whether it's your relative or not relative. Greeting, glad tidings. We don't say glad tidings. In Arabic we say basharu bin nar. Tidings, you can't say tidings of the fire. Can you? Tidings of the fire? Tidings, is it tidings? Because it's always nice, tidings, isn't it?
Glad tidings.
Tidings is nice.
Yeah.
Glad tidings, isn't it?
Yeah, glad tidings.
It's always tidings to do with nice, not to do with...
Yeah.
But in Arabic, we say bashirhu bil jannah or bashirhu bil nar. Same word. Greeting with the fire. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm just saying tidings it doesn't work. Somebody said to me it doesn't work. Because I mentioned in one khutbah, it doesn't work, tidings. Tidings is only with good things. With an Arabic it does. No. So the Prophet ﷺ said, go and bury him. And tells us as well, we're not allowed to participate in the funeral. We're not allowed to wash him or shroud him because he's a disbeliever. But because there was nobody to bury him, we have to what? Bury him. Because the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, his heir and the one who is in direct charge of him is his son and his nephew. Have to take care of him. So if you had a relative, you are a reaver, and your father and your mother are disbelievers and they died upon disbelief, if you had nobody to bury them, you have to bury them. You have to bury them. Okay? You bury them as well in the disbelievers' graveyard. Because the believers and the disbelievers, they have to be distinguished in the graveyard as well, according to the Sharia of Islam. And that is why we have segregation at the moment between the Muslim cemetery and the non-Muslim cemetery. That's why the Jews as well, they have their own cemetery. Totally designated for them. Now.
Number 5, ghusl to the 2 Eids and the day of Arafah.
Now.
Al-Bayhaqi recorded from Al-Shafi'i on the authority of Za'dan. He said, a man asked Ali about ghusl and he said, make ghusl every day.
You say Sa'dan? Zadan.
Zadan.
Because you said Sa'dan means monkey, so that's why. No.
Al-Bayhaqi recorded from Al-Shafi'i on the authority of Za'dan. He said, a man asked Ali about ghusl and he said, make ghusl every day if you wish. The man replied, no, I'm talking about the washing that is a virtuous ghusl. Ali then told him, that is on Friday, the day of Arafah, the Eid of the sacrifice, and the Eid of the breaking of the fast.
The day of Jumu'ah, there's no day of Friday. Okay? The day of Jumu'ah. The day of Jumu'ah, day of Arafah, the day of Arafah. So we understand now, ghusl for the 2 Eids and ghusl for Arafah, which are to be recommended. Go ahead.
Number 6, performing ghusl due to washing a deceased person. Prophet ﷺ said, whoever washes the deceased should make ghusl.
Right, so the person also, when he washes the deceased, recommended for him to wash. But it says here, he who washes the deceased, let him wash. How can we turn the command into recommendation? Because of another hadith, where Allah ibn Abbas, he said that some of the companions to make a wash, some of us will make wash, and some of us will not make a wash. Because of that, the command here dropped from being obligatory into what? Recommended. So the person who washes the deceased, recommended for him to wash the deceased, to wash himself. Number 7.
Number 7, perform a ghusl in order to enter the inviolable state of the major pilgrimage, Hajj, or the minor pilgrimage, Umrah. Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu stated that he saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam remove any certain garments for his inviolable state and make ghusl for such.
Right. So making a ghusl for ihram with umrah or hajj. So as soon as you make the ihram, before you utter the words, you could put the clothes of the ihram without washing. You didn't really do without you having a ghusl. But once you want to make the words, make the ightisal and say the words لبيك اللهم بعمرة or لبيك اللهم بحج, and that is recommended. Number 8.
Number 8, perform al-ghusl prior to entering Mecca. It is narrated that Ibn Umar would not enter Mecca unless he would spend the night at Bu'tuha until the morning, and then make ghusl, and then enter Mecca during the daytime. He narrated that the Prophet ﷺ had done that.
And also when you enter Mecca, whether you are in a state of ihram or not in a state of ihram, if you enter Mecca, you have ightisal, and that's recommended. Number 9. I'm giving number 9. Number 9. That is to make ghusl if the person on janaba before he sleeps. You know that when you sleep, you could sleep on janaba and then you have the ghusl for the fajr. But here I'm saying it's recommended before you sleep to what? Make the ghusl. So you could be ready for the fajr. If you're lazy to make the ghusl, then make wudu. If you are still lazy to make wudu, then what? Tayammum. But that tayammum or that wudu will not make you able to do the fajr prayer without having the ghusl. This is just for the sake of what? Sleeping. To sleep on tahar, purity. So the person before he sleeps, it's recommended for him to make ightisal from the janab. And of course if he does the prayer, he has to have the ightisal. Right. Prophet ﷺ said, 3 people, the angels will not come close to them. The corpse of a kafir, here the angel of the rahmah, and the person who's got the perfume of the woman, and the one who's on janaba until he makes wudu. So the angels of mercy will not come to you if you are on janaba. And that hadith is in Sunan Abi Dawud and it's authentic. Again, 3 people, the angels of mercy will not approach the corpse of the kafir, and the one who's got the perfume from the men of the woman, the male who's got the perfume of the woman, and the person who's janaba until he makes wudu. Also the hadith in Sunan al-Bayhaqi, the authority of Aisha, the Prophet of Allah used to, if he is on janaba, before he sleeps, if he wants to sleep, he would make wudu or he would make tayammum, and now here we say it's better also to make the ightisal. Alhamdulillah الذي جعل في الأمر ساعة. Alhamdulillah, may Allah our religion to be spacious. Okay, now after we finish the ightisal, I would like to add some points. I do have a paper made of 5. I would like you to, I could just email it to you or whatever, to one of you, and then he will email it to everybody. And that is to do with the ghusl. It's like a notes, and it's the cream of everything. Okay? Cream of everything. Before I start, I would like to ask some questions here. Before I start giving you the notes, or adding to the notes, I'm going to ask some questions. I could see that if you are ready to answer them from last week. Okay? If a person was in stimulation and felt that the mani means the semen, sperm, was discharged, but for one reason or another, mani was not actually discharged, is the ghusl required or not required? Put your finger up. Yalla?
Not required.
Not required. Correct. Give you an example. Person held his private part and prevented the ejaculation to take place. So the ejaculation did not take place. There is no ghusl. Even he was in stimulation. Right. This person
he was in stimulation, felt the money coming out, he stopped it. But when he walked, he ejaculated. Is that ghusl or not? Put your finger up. Yes? Ghusl, correct. If a person was walking and he felt the demons came out of him, whether it's male or female, came out of him without ejaculation, is there any ghusl or not? Put your finger up. Yes? Huh? No ghusl, ya habibi. See? Made a mistake. So I'm going to repeat the question. A person was walking and he felt the sperm came without ejaculation. He's awake. And when you are awake, you have to have two conditions. That is the discharge of the semen with ejaculation. So if it's been ejaculated or came out because of illness and cold and all of that, no. Right. I'm going to ask you now. Didn't say anything yet. If one wakes up from a sleep and finds some moistness, though he's not sure, is it mani or not? But he recalls a wet dream. Does he make ghusl or not?
He does.
Very well done. He makes a ghusl. Can I ask you? What's your name, my brother?
Abu Rahman.
Yeah, Abu Rahman. If a person finds money in his underwear, listen to the question. If a person finds money in his underwear and he has already prayed, what should he do? Should he repeat the prayer and ghusl, or should he not? He found money.
You need to do ghusl
From where?
after the prayer.
You should say from the last time he slept. Do you understand that? So the person found some sperm. He doesn't know that he ejaculated when he was awake or not. Like the first question we said, and he said, this one he found a sperm in his underwear. And he prayed. Then he has not just to make this prayer after ghusl, he has to make ghusl and make every single prayer he made from the last what? Sleep that he had. Okay, you're learning something. I just got some questions here for you. If one wakes from sleep and finds some moistness, and he's certain it is many, but he does not recall any wet dream, any ghusl on him?
No.
Yes.
I'm going to repeat the question. If one wakes up from sleep and finds some moistness, and he is certain it is many sperm, but does not recall any wet dream, ghusl required or not required? Again, person, he wakes up from the sleep, finds in his pants that is moistness, which is 100% it is sperm, but does not recall that he had a dream or wet dream. So ghusl or not? Of course, 100% there's a ghusl. Yes, we said when you are asleep and you saw something, so the condition is that number one is what?
Sleep.
You gotta say number one, that it means you ejaculate. Sorry, you are got wet many. It doesn't matter you recall wet dream or not. If you find what? Wetness, and you are 100% it is what? So when you are awake, it has to be with lust and ejaculation. So you have to have the semen plus lust. And you are asleep, no lust is required. So when you see the semen, you have to have a wash. See how important this is for us? Okay. What are the forbidden acts to do when you are on janaba? Yeah. Forbidden act to do when you are on janaba. Yalla. Maybe you're too young for that. Yalla, Sheikh. What is forbidden upon you when you are on janaba? Salah.
What else as well? Now,
Touching the Quran.
touching the Quran. What else as well?
Entering the masjid.
Tawaf.
The masjid, you could enter the masjid, no problem, enter the masjid. Tawaf. And also, sa'i. Very well done. So you're allowed to do anything else. You're allowed to make dhikr. No problem. Can the person, if he's on janaba, look at me, if you're on janaba, are you allowed to make the prostration of tilawa? Somebody recited a verse, it's got sajda in it. Am I allowed to prostrate or not?
No.
Yeah.
You're allowed. Because the sajda tilawa is not a salah. Only the prayer. Ah, yes, catch your head properly. Yes. So you're allowed. Any sajda tilawa, sajda of the gratitude, all of that is allowed. If I am on janaba, who I asked? Nah, you know. If I am janaba, am I allowed to stand on Arafah? Hajj, the Hajj, you know, stand on Arafah. Am I allowed?
Yes, you are.
Yes, because we said the forbidden acts are 4. So anything else is no problem.
Dua, yeah.
You can do it, no problem on janaba. So the ones which are not allowed, prayer, tawaf, and sa'i, and touching the Quran and nothing else. طيب. Now, important points regarding the ghusl. This is the last thing. Number 1. An obligatory ghusl will not make up for another obligatory one. An obligatory ghusl will not make up for another obligatory one unless the person recalls only one of them. Meaning, if you are on janaba and also you are doing Jumu'ah ghusl, both are compulsory. Your janaba ghusl will not make up for the Jumu'ah, and not vice versa as well. It doesn't. You have to do ghusl for the Jumu'ah and ghusl for the what? For the janaba. Same thing with a woman. Woman should got menses and she's on her janaba. She do ghusl for the janaba and ghusl for the what? For the menses. Unless you don't recall one of them, except for one of them, it's no problem. So if you recall both of them, then you must perform a ghusl for each with 2 separate intentions, niyyah. Like the Jumu'ah and the janaba, as I said. For verily Abu Qatada, he passed upon his son Abdullah and he said to him, when he was at Jumu'ah, what are you doing? He said, ghusl. From what? He said, from the janaba. He said, make another one for Jumu'ah. Okay.
Where's that hadith, Sheikh?
Which one?
You know the hadith you just said?
The hadith, you find it in number of books, but the first, the one that comes to my mind is Sahih al-Targhib al-Tarhib, Sheikh al-Albani, Targhib al-Tarhib. Finally, recommended ghusl will make up for an obligatory one with the following 2 conditions. The recommended ghusl will make up for an obligatory one for the following with the following 2 conditions. Condition number 1, the ghusl must be recommended, meaning for a religious purpose, not for sweat or whatever. Like for example, we have now ghusl which is recommended like after the marital relation. Do you understand me? Which are the recommended ghusl we discussed just now. We discussed a number of them, about 10. So you have recommended ghusl, for example, for the Eid, recommended ghusl for when you bury the mushrik, recommended ghusl when you are on istihaba, after for example, you had unconsciousness and all of that. So that's the first condition. It has to be recommended for religious purpose. Second one, the person did not recall that he had a major impurity. You did not recall a major impurity. Because if you recall that you were in janaba, what you're doing now, you are making ghusl not for the janaba, I'm making ghusl for the Eid. It's not allowed. Or making ghusl for Arafah, making ghusl for Mecca. You have to do the ghusl with intention for what? For janaba. So this person now, he was in janaba. He didn't recall he was in janaba. And he performed ghusl when he entered Mecca. Then you remember he was in janaba. We say that ghusl for Mecca is enough. Because it is a recommended ghusl to go to Mecca when you make ghusl, and you did not recall that you were in janaba. Another example. Person, he was in janaba. He did not remember, but he had, for example, washed a person who's dead. He knows from the sunnah, if you are washing a person who's dead, to wash yourself. So he had a wash. And he's about now to pray the janazah or the dhuhr prayer. Then he recalled I was in janaba. His ghusl, for that sake, will be enough. Even though it is not compulsory, it's recommended. So that ghusl recommended will make up for obligatory as long as it is a recommended religious purpose and also that you did not recall the major impurity. Is that understood, inshallah? Right. Khalas, we finished the ghusl, alhamdulillah. Now we come to the following, and that is at-tayammum. Let's make tayammum, ya akhi.
Purification with the use of soil.
Means we call it dry ablution. Huh? Yeah, dry. Yeah. Is it? Yeah, dry purification. Correct.
The proof for its validity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن كُنْتُم مَّرْضَىٰ أَوْ عَلَىٰ سَفَرٍ أَوْ جَاءَ أَحَدٌ مِّنكُم مِّنَ الْغَائِطِ أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم منه. But if you are ill, وأيديكم منه. But if you are ill or on a journey, or any of you comes from answering the call of nature, or you have been in contact with women, i.e. sexual intercourse, and you find no water, then perform tayammum with clean earth and rub therewith your faces and hands.
At-tayammum is something that this ummah is being given. No other ummah has been given that. Prophet ﷺ, he said, I have been given 5. Other narration 6. That other prophets, they were not given. One of them is that the earth was made for me purification and a masjid. So wherever I am, I have my what? My 2 things I need, which is purification and the masjid. Wherever I am, I've got my wudu with me, which is the land, the earth, and I've got my masjid to pray in, subhanallah. So wherever I am, but this is wherever I am, except for the places which we said is not allowed for you to pray on. And that is, give me one place for the kids. Who's a kid here? Okay, I'll accept you as a kid. Yes?
The place where camels stay.
Camel pens. Very well done. Third one? Yes?
Graveyard.
Graveyard. Yes. What's up to your voice? You okay? MashaAllah. Well done. So I've got 3 places. You see, I'm really thrilled. See, the children are better than the adults. Inshallah. Very cool about some things. Miniature sheikhs. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that. And the reason it was that Allah has given us this is that Aisha radiallahu anha, she had lost a necklace made of adfar, special of ivory. It's not ivory, but made of like a nice. Be given to her by her sister, Asma. She lost it. She lost it. The army was coming back all the way to the Medina. On the way, she lost it there. And because she lost it, she made the whole army to stay put and camp there in order to what? To look for it. So the water that they had and ran out. So they had no water now to make wudu with it. Even Abu Bakr was so mad of his daughter, made everybody mad of you. Poking her in the belly like that. Sorry. And he was so upset. Anyway, when they wanted to leave after they have nothing, when they wanted to leave, the necklace was underneath the camel. The necklace was underneath the camel. And there was no water. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the verse, which is that verse. To use the what? The dry purification. As soon as this happened, a number of companions came. One came to Abu Bakr, said, Ya Abu Bakr, هذه ليست بأول بركتكم يا آل أبي بكر. This is not the first barakah we receive through you, Ya Abu Bakr. Let me always receive barakah from you, the family of Abu Bakr. Another person came to Aisha radiallahu anha. She said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time He tests you with something, it is good for you. Every time it's something that you hate comes to you, it comes what? For your good. Like for example what? The lie. The great lie against Aisha, it turned what? Good to her. There's a verse protecting her now, until now. So that's any person who says Aisha, she is a fornicator, is a kafir. Because he's disbelieving in what? In the Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had exonerated her and Surah Al-Nur. So this is how the story of how the tayammum came. So there is no need to use water now, you can use the land. And that was really happy concession by the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب, the Prophet ﷺ said,
Prophet ﷺ also said, the pure ground is the ablution for the Muslim, even if he does not find water for 10 years.
Right. 10 years is not the time. I'm not going to time myself for how many. 10 years means it's impossible for the person to stay for 10 years without water. So this number is actually, it's got nothing related to it. So it's not, the Prophet said 10 years and after that, okay, and then I have to come out and use the tayammum. It doesn't mean that. It means that, look how long you can stay without water. It doesn't matter if you use one tayammum. Because no way, common sense, that the person will stay without water for 10 years. He will die anyway for 3 days and then no water will die. And he says, As-Sa'id al-Tayyib. As-Sa'id al-Tayyib. As-Sa'id al-Tayyib, what is it? The face of the earth. So tayammum means perform dry ablution using what cover the earth, such as soil, sand, dirt, mud, stones, rocks, walls. All of that is part of the earth, but not metal, wood, paper. It's not. It is a substitute for the wudu or the ghusl under specific circumstances. That's the tayammum. Now we're coming to the reasons and the causes which makes it permissible to use the tayammum. Now,
The causes that make it permissible. Tayammum is permissible when one is not able to use water due to its being unavailable or out of fear that using it would be harmful due to an illness in the body or extreme cold. Imran ibn Hussein radiallahu anhu said, we were with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on a journey, and he led the people in prayer while there was a man who did not join the people. The Prophet said, what prevented you from praying with the people? He said, I became sexually defiled and there is no water. The Prophet ﷺ said, then told him, you should use the ground as that will be sufficient for you. Jabir radiallahu anhu said, we went out on a journey and one of us was struck by a rock and injured in his head. He had a wet dream and he asked his companions, do you see that I have an exemption to make tayammum instead of ghusl? They replied, we do not find any exemption for you while you have the ability to use water. Thus, he made ghusl and died due to it. When we came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we informed him of what had happened. He said, they killed him and may Allah destroy them. Should they not have asked if they did not know, truly the cure for the one who is lost is in asking. It would have been sufficient for him to make tayammum. Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu said about when he was sent for the battle of Ta'at al-Salasil, I had a wet dream during a terribly cold night. I feared that if I were to make ghusl, I would die. Thus I made tayammum and led my companions in the morning prayer. When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam came to us, I mentioned that to him. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "O Amr, did you lead your companions in prayer while you were sexually defiled?" I said, I recalled Allah's statement, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Do not kill yourselves, surely Allah is most merciful to you. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam just laughed and did not say anything further.
Right. Let's talk about the reasons and details which makes it permissible for the person to use dry ablution. First reason is the person cannot find water after searching for it from any possible source, such as companions, neighbors, etc. So the person does not find water, as the ayah had says, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, you don't find water, so from any possible source, then you make tayammum. Give you example. Example number one, water is far away. So this distance depends upon the circumstances of the user. Means of transport. A person who's foot is different from a person who is in car. Number two, example, hard to fetch the water due to the lack of proper means, such as rope, bucket, or maybe fear of the beasts, enemies next to the water, you can't bring it. So you can't find water. Another example, water is insufficient for ablution or need to use it for drinking. So for example, whether it is for animals or human beings, even for animals. So this person, he's finding that the water he's got is only enough for himself to drink and for his animal to drink. Or for example, that this water is needed for cooking. Or this example, that this water is needed is enough only for removing impurities from the private parts. So here the priority goes to those things. So if there will be no water left after these things, then you can use the yamam. I'm giving you lots of examples for insufficient, for ablution. Also another example, water can only be fetched through purchasing, and the person cannot afford it. So the people got no water except for purchasing it, and the purchasing it is too expensive. And they've been exploiting the situation, these people. I can't purchase it beyond my capability, then you're allowed to use tayammum. Second reason, he says that one believes that the use of water will harm him. He's got water, but he believes that the usage of the water will what? Harm him. Now, how much belief he needs to have in order to be allowed to use tayammum? Do you understand me? We said ghalabatul dhann. That means more than 50%. I mean, it's like more likely for him that he's going to be harmed. More likely if you're going to be harmed, you can use tayammum. No problem. So, if the person is injured, like the hadith there, this person was injured, and the hadith is very good example. Hadith Jabir bin Abdullah. We went on a journey, and one of us, he had a wound, was injured in his head, and then he had sexual defilement through a wet dream. Because it's in the head, and because the water is cold in the desert there, and the injury is in a fatal, location in the head. And he's asking his friends, can I use dry ablution, dry purification? Then he said to him, no, there's water here. Can't find you an excuse to use that.
So what he did, he had washed himself. As soon as he washed himself, he died. Of course, as a result of usage of the water. When they told the Prophet ﷺ about it, he said, they've killed him, may Allah kill them. أَلَا سَأَلُوا لَمْ يَعْلَمُ. Should they ask if they didn't know? فَإِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِيِّ السُّؤَالِ أو الْعِيِّ السُّؤَالِ. For verily, the cure of ignorance, did your Prophet that if you cure of ignorance? Is to ask. Did you translate it like this?
It just says the cure for the one who is lost.
Is lost.
Yeah.
That's not right. The cure for the one who is ignorant is to ask. What is enough for him, suffices him to make what? Tayammum. And that's to show the danger of making fatwa without knowledge. You kill somebody. Like that monk who had made fatwa to the person who wanted to repent. No repentance. So what happened? He killed him. He killed him. So this fatwa killed that person. Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu. Look at that. He was on Janaba. And he is not just led the prayer, he's the commander of the army of that small expedition that had been sent by the Prophet ﷺ. So it was night, cold, and he couldn't, there's no means to heat the water with. And he's on Janaba. So he used to help. He led his companions. When some of them knew about this, they went to the Prophet of Allah complaining. Actually, Allah told him, you have led your companions, your comrades, for verily, Prophet ﷺ, as soon as he was told about it, he told you leading your companions with water of Janaba? That means you just suffice yourself with the tayammum. He said, verily, well, I've remembered Allah's verse. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Do not kill yourselves, for verily Allah is merciful to you. So that means I don't want to kill myself using the water. That's what it means. That's why I had made tayammum and I prayed. The Prophet laughed and he did not said, your prayer should not be accepted. You need to go make ghusl. No. Right. So after this now you understand that if the person cannot use the water, then, so this water is too cold. Very cold. And there is no means to heat it. So no problem to use tayammum. Yes? Right. Question. Which one can I ask? Yes, sir. Test it. I have said the substances on the earth that you could use as tayammum. Yes? Right, mention examples. Can the person make tayammum with the beach sand? Yes or no? Think. Can he? Can he?
Yeah.
Why?
Because beach sand, I can't remember what it is, but it's something that it's not from. I can't remember what sand is. It's something to do with fishing or something.
Okay.
No, it's not. Beach sand is something else.
Can the person make tayammum with beach sand? Everybody.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Sisters? Yes. How can he make tayammum with beach sand and he's next to the beach?
Hey, we don't want these sort of questions, shit.
She's got lots of water there.
It might be too cold.
La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
He said it might be too cold though.
Too cold sometimes.
That's not an answer.
There's sharks in the water.
Trick question.
When there is water, there is no tayammum. إذا حضر الماء بطل التيمم. Tayammum is not allowed. It is water. As long as you are able to use it, calm. So now let's go to the what is the side? Now, تفضل.
What is the ground that can be used? The word used in the Quran is as-sa'id, In Lisan al-Arab, it states, As-Sa'id is the earth. It is also said that it is the clean earth. It is also said that it is any clean soil. In the Quran it states, فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. Perform tayammum with clean earth. Abu Ishaq said, As-Sa'id is the face of the earth. The person is supposed to strike his hand on the earth, on the face of the earth. That is the ground. It does not matter if there is soil or not at that spot. This is because as-sa'id is not simply soil. It is the face of the earth, whether it is soil or not. He also said, if the whole earth were a rock with no soil on it, and the person struck that rock, that would be purifying for him if he were to wipe his face with it.
Right. So we understand now that whatever is covering the earth, as we have said, from the soil, from the dirt, from the beach sand, anything to do with anything with dirt, but not metal, not paper, and not wood, it is allowed to make tayammum, listen, to a rock which is even wet. So let's say there was rain, and he wetted the land. So you could make on a wet rock. So you could bring a tile to a sick person in the hospital who cannot make wudu, to make what? Tayammum on it. You could wipe it, wash it for him, whatever. So it doesn't have to have dust in it in order for what? For the person to make tayammum. You don't have to have dust. No. As long as it's on the earth, if it's concrete. The wall, save the walls which has got wallpaper, because it's got to be paper. Save the wall as well, the wall that's got oil paint, because it's what? A separation. But if it is painted with water-based oil, water-based paint, no problem. Do you understand that? Emulsion. Water-based paint, it does not prevent the hand or the touch of your hand to the real wall. But the wall has to be the bricks, not the one which is separated between a room and room, which is the wood. Not the plasterboard. Not the wall which is covered with wallpaper. Because the paper there. Other than that, you can make tayammum with that, inshallah. By this we'll stop, because what is left is a lot. The tayammum still hasn't finished. I'm going to talk about as well the useful points and pillars of the Quran as well. So we have to give you inshallah time for questions. If you have any questions regarding what we've heard, please go.